my name is Anastasia Pasenko, and I'm on the mental health team from Health Promotion.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm also on the mental health team here at Health Promo. Today we're going to talk to Patrick Marcotte, a psychiatrist, about suicide prevention.
The first question we have is, what is mental health and why should we care about it?
Mental health can be hard to define. Basically, it's about feeling content and being effective in our daily lives. There are three main reasons why we may feel mentally unwell. First, the world around us. Our society is far from perfect, and we face high demands for perfection and performance. And if we want to reach out for help, sometimes there's the mental health stigma that may be an obstacle. Also, we may face lack of support or poverty, for example. Second, the human nature. Although we're a very intelligent species that invented the internet, aviation, and barbecue chips, we are first and foremost animals. And when we experience stress, it's the animal in us that reacts first. This works well when a bear is chasing you, but it doesn't work as well when you're having a disagreement, for example, with your boss. Of course, if you choose to beat him, you're going to end up in jail. If you run away from him, you're going to lose your job. So instead, the brain starts mental fights like rumination for hours at a time. You don't sleep, or you try to escape these negative feelings by taking alcohol, drugs, even in some cases by suicide. And otherwise, you become in a detached or unproductive, frozen state. And third, a big one, mental health disorders. Of course, they do exist, and unfortunately, basically 20% of the population will experience a mental disorder in their lifetime. It's important to talk about mental health because it's what's most important. At the end of the day, everything we do from morning to night revolves around trying to be happy. And there's so much we can do to improve our mental health and how we feel.
Why do we need to talk about suicide?
We need to talk about suicide because it's no small matter. Suicide kills. It's a major cause of death in Canada, actually the 9th leading cause, especially among young people aged 15 to 24, where it's the second leading cause. Suicide is often preceded by probably one of the worst form of suffering that a human being can feel, and suicide leaves long-term scars on the person's loved ones that are hard to erase. Part of the problem is that people who are suicidal are reluctant to tell people when they aren't doing well for a variety of reasons. Fear of being labeled, of worrying others, or even that someone will intervene and prevent them from committing suicide if their intention is very strong. It's a vicious cycle since people who are suicidal really need to break their feelings of extreme loneliness and detachment. It takes humility to confide in someone, but it's important to remember that many people are in the exact same boat right now as we speak. If you don't talk about it, you sink deeper and deeper. Talking is necessary, but it's not enough. It's also important to act at every stage to overcome the domino effect that drives some people to suicide. We also need to continue doing research to better understand all the factors that enter into play and develop new intervention methods. For example, there's one promising drug that's being developed that could drastically reduce suicidal thoughts in just a few hours. This drug could, of course, significantly change how we think about suicide and how we intervene.
Thank you. That was a very informative response. Now our next question is, what are the signs that someone is thinking about suicide?
Okay. Suicide is actually quite hard to predict, even for professionals. Of course, there are clear signs. If the person says they want to die, or they went on the internet to find an effective method. They prepare for suicide, like insurance calls, will, letters to loved ones, giving away belongings, buying equipment such as a gun or rope, rehearsing a plan. But most of the time, the signs are more indirect and ambiguous. So you may see the person facing a major loss in his or her life, and say that she no longer sees the point of being alive. The person can become more frequently intoxicated with alcohol or drugs. There are a few classic pictures, like the depressive presentation. If someone becomes quite depressed with a loss of interest, changes in sleep and appetite patterns, refuses invitations, and having a hard time focusing, concentrating. One thing that's rarer but still very relevant to discuss is the onset of a psychotic illness, when someone starts to lose contact with reality, like hearing voices or having a weird speech and delusions that can lead to very unpredictable suicidal gestures. And also another classic is someone who suffers from what we call a personality disorder. That means when someone reacts quite strongly emotionally to even minor relational conflicts, and sometimes to the point of cutting or self-harm, and doing recurrent suicide attempts. These are persons that can be at risk for a completed suicide.
What should I do if someone is thinking about suicide?
Of course, if the person is in the middle of a suicide attempt, you may have to call 911 immediately. Same thing if the person is talking about doing something imminently, or also if you feel that some other people might be in danger. Otherwise, there are some guidelines. Of course, never challenge someone to do it. Never promise secrecy. No one is bound to confidentiality when a person's life is in danger. Don't be afraid to address the topic of suicide directly. You won't give them the idea. It's best to be quite open and ask the questions in a straightforward manner, like, do you think of killing yourself? And just pay attention to the phrasing, not to phrase that in some negative way, that you meaning that you're going to be very anxious if the answer is yes, I want to kill myself. So for example, if you say you don't intend to kill yourself, do you? So that's not the best way to ask. Don't moralize or be judgmental about the cause of the crisis or the intensity of the response. Don't minimize the person's suffering. Don't make them promise not to commit suicide just to reassure you. That just doesn't work. And try to pick a time and place that is private and conducive to communication and trust. Stay calm and listen to the person without judgment or criticism. Try to understand the other person. You can assess the level of urgency of the situation by asking the person when, where, and how they are thinking of committing suicide. And of course, the sooner the time frame, the more accessible the means, and the more specific the plan, the quicker an intervention is needed. Urge the person to assess the situation, step back and try to find alternative to suicide, and remember their reasons for living. Be patient and attentive. Support the person in their efforts. Give them hope by helping them find people, projects, and dreams that are worth staying alive for until the crisis has passed. encourage them to do activities, get exercise, meet people while respecting their abilities and their own pace. If they refuse your help and you're worried about the situation, you can contact the local emergency services or crisis center for advice. And also, it's always a good idea to involve the person's family or anyone else you trust to discuss the situation.
Our last question is, can consulting a health professional really make a difference?
Absolutely. The majority of people who commit suicide had not been adequately treated, and often they had received no treatment at all. And it's quite sad because all the issues leading to suicide can be addressed and treated, and success rates are relatively high these days. For some conditions, it may take only a few weeks and sometimes even a few days before someone starts feeling better, like for depression or psychosis. For some conditions, it may be a bit longer, like for when the problem is mostly a personality issue. So, of course, you cannot change from one personality to another overnight. So you have to learn skills to cope better and to become more resilient. Same thing with substance abuse problems. But even in these cases, there's certainly a lot of hope, and it's truly impressive to see how many of my patients who have struggled with these difficulties now enjoy life, and when for a while they really wanted to end it.
Thank you so much, Patrick Marcotte, for speaking with us today.
Remember that you can find more information on suicide prevention at uottawa.ca/wellness. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of the week.